The night breathed like a living thing. Wind crossed the flats and slid through the canyon mouth. Sand hissed along the stone. A coyote called. I heard the echo and knew I was not alone in this world. The hideout sat where the rocks split, an old line shack, one lamp, one hearth, a roof patched with rawhide and hope. I rode in slow. My horse, Juniper, tossed her head. She smelled wood smoke. She smelled fear. I felt both in my own chest. Her voice came first, low, steady, tired. Leave the horse by the mesquite. Come inside before the fire dies. I did as she asked, not because she ordered it, because the tone in her words carried weight. A woman who had carried too much for too long. She stood by the fire when I entered. Elara Wren. Freckled cheeks. Dark eyes made darker by road dust. A worn blue dress, mended at the waist. A clean bandage at her wrist. A Colt resting on the table. Not pointed at me. Not far from her reach. I took off my hat. Set it near the door. Name is Colt Avery, I said. A truth I did not hide. A past I did not offer. Her mouth tilted, almost a smile. I know who you are, she said. People speak your name like a trail they remember by the scars it gave them. She looked at my hands, then at the flames. I am Elara. I keep this place quiet. Quiet. The word settled in me like warm whiskey, a promise I did not trust yet, a thing I wanted to believe. I moved toward the hearth, held my palms to the heat. The room smelled of juniper smoke and coffee gone bitter. A tin kettle clinked as the fire shifted. Outside, the wind pressed against the shack. Inside, time felt slower. A soft pause held in firelight. She poured coffee. No sugar, no apology. Drink, she said. The night is long in this canyon. The sheriff will not love you enough to wait until morning. I took the cup. Let the tin bite my skin. Who told you the law was near? She nodded toward the dark. 2 riders on the ridge at sunset. They watched my smoke. They watched the water barrel. Then they kept riding. Men who watch like that are not thirsty. They are hunting. I listened, not only to her, to the way the fire popped, to the way her breath evened when she felt seen, to the ache in my ribs that flared when I stood too straight. I can leave before the moon sets, I said. I do not want trouble under your roof. Her eyes found mine, a quiet storm there. Maybe you brought the trouble. Maybe the trouble brought you. Either way, you are hurt. Sit. It was not a request. I sat. The chair creaked. She knelt by a low crate and drew out a small tin. She opened it. Pine salve, clean linen. She placed them on the table between us. Take off your shirt, she said, or bleed on my floor. Your choice. I laughed once. Short. Foolish. Then I obeyed. The linen caught against the scab at my side. I hissed. Heat swam in my vision. The wound was a red mouth speaking pain. Elara's hands were steady, gentle, not soft. She cleaned, pressed, tied. She did not flinch at the sight of me. She did not look away from what hurt. Her fingers were warm with the fire near them. Her breath touched my skin and cooled it. Outside, the wind shifted. Inside, something else shifted too. "Who shot you?" she asked. "Men who wanted a debt paid. I did not have the coin." I watched her eyes at that. No judgment, only a flicker of knowing. "I was shot once," she said. A quiet confession. The wound closed. The story did not. I let the silence sit. It was not empty. It was full of footprints we did not name. She tied the last knot, stood, poured water in a tin cup and held it to me. Her knuckles were scraped. Old scars, thin as whispers, crossed the heel of her hand. "What is this place?" I asked. "A hinge," she said. Her gaze drifted to the door, then to the fire again. "People pass. They think the desert ends here. It does not. It goes on. But the heart needs a hinge to turn on when it is tired." A hinge. I tasted the word. It felt like a door that might open if I was brave enough to push. She moved to the shelves, brought back a loaf wrapped in cloth, salt pork, dried peaches. She set them out with a small knife. We ate without speech for a while. Her shoulder brushed mine when she reached for the kettle. Just a graze, a simple touch. Still, the air changed. Fire ran a slow line through me. Not sharp, not wild, something patient, something that waited to be invited. But then she whispered, "You can sleep here if you wish." Her voice held gravel and rain. "I will take the cot by the door. I sleep light. You will be safe." Safe. I had not been safe in years. I did not know what to do with the promise. The lamp clicked as she lowered the flame. Shadows stretched. The room drew close around the hearth. Her face turned soft in the half-light. A woman made of endurance and dawn. "You talk like a preacher," I said. My smile felt new, only with more truth. She shook her head. "Truth is simple. It is people who twist it. The desert untwists a man. So does pain." She went to the door, set a wooden bar in its iron sockets, checked the window latch. Her movements were calm, sure, a ritual learned by heart. "Tell me one thing," she said as she came back. "Not your sin, not your secret. Tell me something small that is yours." I looked at my hands, at the pale burn across my thumb from a camp stove in winter. "At night on the trail," I said, "I listen for the moment when the wind goes quiet. There is a breath the land takes before the cold drops. It sounds like forgiveness." Elara's eyes warmed. She sat on the edge of the hearthstones, close, not too close. "The land forgives," she said. "People learn, slowly." Her presence eased the ache in me. The fire softened its own hunger. I felt the pull of sleep, but not the old, hard fall into it. A kinder drift. Her nearness made it so. In the quiet, I saw a memory rise. My brother laughing at dawn. A river bright as a blade. A woman's letter folded tight in my pocket and never answered. I let the memory pass. This room asked for presents, not ghosts. Elara looked into the flames. "Morning will ask for choices," she said. "Night only asks that we keep the fire." I nodded. The words settled deep, a place to rest my mind. Outside, hoofbeats sounded, distant, measured, the kind of rhythm that belongs to men who think time belongs to them. We both heard it. We both kept our eyes on the fire. 2 riders, she said. The same from sunset, I think. I stood. The wound flared. I found my hat, my holster, my patience. Elara rose too. She did not reach for the Colt on the table. She put her hand on my arm instead. Firm. Grounding. Wait. Let the night speak first. The canyon carries truth before the mouth does. Her touch steadied me. Desire moved like a warm current under the skin, not a blaze, a glow, something that made room for breath. We listened. The hoofbeats slowed, stopped. Silence gathered outside the door. It felt like the edge of a cliff in fog. 1 step, and everything changes. Elara drew a breath. Her lips parted as if to share more than a plan, as if to share the reason she kept a hinge in the desert for strangers who bled into her linen and stayed to watch her fire. If this night has warmed even a small corner of your heart, she murmured, stay close. The dark has more to tell. Let your presence be known. Your listening keeps this fire burning. And if you are ready, come with us into the next part. The knock came again, slow, deliberate, not the kind that asked for permission, the kind that warned before entering. Elara's eyes found mine across the firelight. No panic, no plea, just quiet readiness, the kind forged by long nights and short mercy. She whispered, "Step to the back. The door knows my name better than yours." I obeyed, not out of fear, because something in her calm told me she'd lived through more danger than I had drawn. She unbarred the door. Only a crack. A slice of cold night and starlight slipped in. A man's voice drifted through, smooth, but spoiled by authority. "Elara Wren, you're keeping warm while the desert hunts a wanted man." "I keep no man," she said. "Only the fire." A dry laugh answered. Then a second voice, lower, meaner. "Heard his horse prints led here. Big one. Juniper, ain't it?" My pulse stilled. They knew the name. They'd followed close. Elara didn't flinch. She leaned her shoulder on the doorframe. "The desert holds many hooves," she said. "Pick one, chase it, and maybe you'll find your truth." Bootsteps scuffed the threshold. A hand tried the latch. Her tone dropped, iron beneath honey. "You touch that door, Sheriff Danner, and I'll decide you forgot the law of a woman's home." A pause. Then Danner chuckled, low and dangerous. "You always were wild, Elara. One day that'll burn you down. Then I'll burn standing." The hoofbeats left slow. Their echo tangled in the canyon like smoke, refusing to fade. When she turned back inside, the air still shimmered from her courage. I stepped from the shadows. "They know me. They'll be back." She nodded. "They will. The sheriff doesn't ride this far for sport." I watched her hands tremble once, the only crack in her armor, before she hid them in her skirts. "You stood between me and the law," I said. "Why?" Her gaze flicked to the fire. "To repay a kindness," she said softly. "Years ago, a stranger hid me when I was the one bleeding. He didn't ask why, just said some souls aren't built to hunt. They're built to heal what the hunt ruins." Something in her voice caught. Not weakness. Memory. A ghost of a promise that still held weight. "I owe that man," she said. "Maybe helping you is the way the debt finally ends." I stepped closer, close enough to feel the heat from her skin, to smell the faint cedar in her hair. Elara, debts end when we stop paying them, not when they're even. She looked up then, really looked. The kind of look that stripped truth down to bone. Her lips parted, ready to speak, but what came was a whisper. You talk like you've buried too many. I have, I said. Some deserved it, some didn't. She reached out then, not to comfort, but to steady herself. Her hand brushed my arm, feather light. The air thickened. Firelight glowed against her skin, turning her freckles to constellations. Maybe the desert brought us both here to stop running, she murmured. Her touch lingered, then fell away like a prayer she wasn't sure she should finish. I found her eyes again, and for a heartbeat, silence became its own kind of confession. Outside, the wind picked up. Dust swirled under the door. The fire flared as if warning us both that warmth had a price. She turned, pulling the kettle off the flame. Tomorrow you'll ride east, she said quietly, through the dry gulch before dawn. It's the only trail the sheriff's men won't risk before light. You're coming with me. Her hand froze mid-air. No. Elara, if they know you helped me. I've been known before, she cut in. The desert forgets names faster than men do. I stepped toward her, and she backed up, not afraid, but aware. Our shadows met on the wall, one shape trembling with breath. I don't want to owe you my freedom, I said. I want to share it. Her eyes softened, and for a moment she almost smiled. You don't even know if I want freedom. Everyone does, I said, even those who claim the desert as home. The storm outside began its slow song, sand scraping stone, thunder far away. She looked toward the window, then back to me. Storm's coming, she said, and you're bleeding again. She tore another strip of linen, came close, and pressed it against my side. Her fingers trembled, not from fear, but from something that felt dangerously alive. When her knuckles brushed my ribs, the room went quiet, as if the world itself leaned in. Her voice fell to a whisper. Every time I touch someone, I remember what it cost the last time I cared. I caught her wrist gently. Then remember this, too, I said, that not every fire burns you. Some teach you how to see in the dark. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Only the crackle of the hearth filled the space between what we said and what we couldn't. Finally, she pulled her hand free, but her breath stayed uneven. Sleep, Colt, she murmured, before the storm decides to stay. She turned away, stoking the flames. But I saw it. The smallest smile she tried to hide. The kind that comes when a heart begins to thaw and doesn't quite know how to stop. I laid back on the blanket she'd spread, the fire painting her silhouette against the wall, a shape carved of courage and loneliness. Sleep tugged at me, slow and heavy. Outside, thunder rolled nearer, the kind that promised both cleansing and ruin. Before the dark claimed me, I heard her voice, soft, almost to herself. Maybe the desert keeps bringing the lost here, so none of us forget what warmth feels like. And as the storm began to whisper across the roof, the scent of rain mixing with smoke, I knew the night wasn't done shaping us yet. If this story has reached some quiet corner of your heart, stay close. The fire still burns, and the storm outside has more to say. The storm came slow, then all at once. Rain hit the roof like gunfire. Wind howled through the cracks in the boards, dragging the desert in with it. Sand hissed along the floorboards, whispering like ghosts. Elara stood at the window, her palm against the glass. Lightning lit her face for half a heartbeat, strong, scarred, almost holy in the silver light. She didn't move when thunder followed. She just whispered, "It's been years since the sky remembered this place." I pushed myself up from the cot. Pain flared down my side, dull but honest. She turned at the sound, her eyes softening when she saw me awake. "You should rest," she said. "The storm isn't after you." "Maybe not," I said, "but it sounds like it's trying to remind us of something we forgot." Her mouth curved, not quite a smile. "The desert remembers what we bury. The storm just brings it to the surface." She walked to the hearth, stirring the coals until the flames rose again. The light painted her in gold, her hair catching sparks, her shadow moving like memory against the wall. "Tell me what you lost out there," she said quietly. "Men don't ride into the canyon bleeding unless they're running from something that mattered." I looked into the fire. Its center pulsed like a wound. "I lost a brother," I said, "and the part of me that believed in forgiveness." Elara didn't answer right away. She poured coffee, handed me a tin cup, then sank into the chair opposite mine. "The world takes what it wants," she said. "Forgiveness isn't a thing you give back. It's a thing you find when you stop asking why it left." Her words hit deep, not like a lesson, more like a truth I already knew, but hadn't dared speak. Outside, the rain softened. The sound shifted from fury to rhythm, steady and patient. Elara watched it the way some people watch the horizon, searching for what never comes, but always might. "You talk like you've buried someone too," I said. Her jaw tightened. She traced a finger along the rim of her cup. "My husband," she said finally. 5 years ago. Sheriff Danner's bullet found him. Wrong place, wrong moment, wrong side of the law. I froze. The name hit hard. "The same sheriff who's hunting me?" She nodded once. "Justice wears many faces in this land. Some of them look a lot like murder." I saw the shadow cross her eyes then. Not hatred, just the kind of grief that dries into something quieter. A scar you learn to live beside. "I stayed here after he died," she said. "This hideout was ours once. I fixed the roof, planted a few mesquites, waited for the wind to sound different." She looked toward the door. It never did. I reached across the table, slow, careful. My fingers brushed hers, just enough to ask permission without words. She didn't pull away. Her hand was warm, pulse steady. She let out a breath like she'd been holding it for years. "Elara," I said softly, "I didn't mean to bring that pain back here." She shook her head. "You didn't bring it. You just gave it a name again." Silence wrapped around us, soft and heavy, the kind that heals more than speech ever could. Outside, thunder rolled farther away, turning into a murmur over the distant hills. Then she said something I didn't expect. "When I found you at the door, Colt, I thought maybe the land was giving me a second chance to choose mercy instead of vengeance." Her eyes lifted to mine. "I don't know what that makes you, salvation or sin, but the fire burned different tonight." I smiled, faint, tired. Maybe both, I said. The West doesn't care much for clean lines. Her lips curved. Then maybe we don't need them either. A streak of lightning flashed across the window, blue-white, silent, followed by a deep rumble that seemed to shake the floor beneath us. The air smelled of rain and dust and something else. Renewal. Elara stood, crossed the room, and opened the door a crack. Rain swept in, cold against our faces. She tilted her head toward the night. "Feel that?" I stepped beside her. Rain hit my skin like small miracles. The canyon glowed faint under the storm's breath, every rock slick and alive. "It's washing the tracks away," she said. "Yours, mine, theirs. The desert will forget by morning." "Then maybe it's time we remember," I said. She turned toward me, eyes glimmering in the lightning's fade. For the first time, she didn't look haunted. She looked present. The silence between us wasn't empty now. It hummed, alive, waiting. Her breath mixed with mine, rain cooling the space between our lips. If I leaned closer, the world might have changed, but she drew back just enough to keep the moment sacred. "The night isn't done," she whispered. "There's still something coming. I can feel it." "What kind of something?" I asked. She looked out at the storm, eyes narrowing toward the ridge. The kind that tests whether mercy was a choice or a mistake. Her words hung in the rain. And then, faint and far, came the sound of hooves. Not thunder this time, but men. Riders. Her face hardened again. "They came back," she said, her voice low, steady as the wind before dawn. "The sheriff doesn't let go that easy." I reached for my gun, still half slick with oil. Elara didn't stop me this time. She met my gaze, her eyes calm and fierce all at once. "If they want a fight," I said, "they'll have to ride through hell to take it." She stepped closer, her hand brushing my chest once, a grounding touch. "No," she whispered, "they'll ride through us." And in that small burning instant, with rain running down her face and the fire casting her in gold, I realized the storm outside wasn't the only one worth fearing. If this story has stirred something quiet inside you, don't turn away now. The storm has only begun to speak. The rain slowed to a whisper. The fire snapped once, as if it knew what was coming. Outside, the hoofbeats grew clearer, steady, deliberate, too sure of their path. Elara moved to the window, the Colt already in her hand. Her body was still, but her eyes, those eyes were pure storm. I joined her, pressing my shoulder near hers. The heat of her skin was the only warmth left in the room. "3 riders," she murmured. "Sheriff Danner's among them." I looked at the ridge. Lightning flashed long enough to carve their shapes in the dark. Hats low, rifles slung, rain dripping off coats that gleamed like oil. Predators waiting for light to betray us. "You said the gulch runs east," I whispered. "If we ride now—" "They'll see us," she cut in. "The canyon funnels sound. The horses will echo off the stone. They'll follow blind and still find us." She turned, her face inches from mine. "We make our stand here." I shook my head. "This shack won't hold against rifles." Her voice dropped, calm as the fire's breath. "Then we won't fight with walls." She crossed to the back corner and pulled a canvas tarp from the floor. Beneath it lay a narrow shaft, half covered with planks. A smell of earth rose from below, damp, ancient. "It's a dry well," she said. "My husband dug it when we needed water. It never gave any, just swallowed light. It runs deep enough to hide two hearts if they stay quiet." The sound of the approaching horses thickened the air. The first one snorted. Rainwater dripped from the eaves like a clock ticking down to violence. "Elara," I said, "if they find this place, they'll burn it. They'll burn you." Her lips curved, the faintest ghost of a smile. "I've been burned before, still standing." She reached for my arm and pulled me close, too close. Her breath trembled between us. "If you don't come down there, they'll kill you, and I'll never forgive myself for saving a man just to watch him die." Her words hit harder than thunder. I saw the stubborn light in her eyes, that quiet, holy defiance of a woman who'd already lost too much to let fate decide again. Before I could answer, she pressed her palm against my chest. Her hand lingered. For a moment, the world shrank to that single point of heat, her skin against mine, steadying, claiming. "All right," I said. Her eyes softened, relief and sorrow tangled together. "Go," she whispered. I climbed into the shaft, boots scraping wood. She followed, pulling the tarp back over us. The darkness swallowed everything but her breath and the faint pulse of firelight above the boards. Then came the knock, hard, impatient. The door creaked open. Sheriff Danner's voice slid through the shack like oil through water. "Elara Wren," he said. "You've been busy hiding strays again." Her tone above us was calm, almost bored. "You ride out in a storm just to accuse a widow of hospitality? You always had a soft heart for killers," he said. "Word is, Colt Avery's near. We followed his horse to your ridge." I felt my pulse hammer in my ribs. Every muscle screamed to move, to fight, to end this. But Elara's hand brushed my shoulder in the dark, and I froze. Her touch said, "Trust me." She answered above, voice low but sharp. "I've seen no man tonight but the one the storm brought, and the storm answers to no sheriff." Danner laughed. "Maybe not. But I do like a good search." His boots creaked across the floorboards. Every step thudded through the hollow air above us. Elara moved too. Quick, sure, intercepting him before he reached the back wall. "Touch one thing here, and I'll remind you what mercy cost last time you came uninvited." The pause that followed was colder than the rain outside. Then Danner spoke again, his tone quieter, dangerous. "I remember your mercy, Elara. I buried your husband with it." Silence. I felt her tremble through the earth between us, not from fear, but from the fire she was holding back, the kind that could burn the whole desert clean. "You should leave," she said. Her words were steady as the wind. "If you still have a soul, Danner, ride before the rain stops washing it." He hesitated. Bootsteps turned toward the door. For a moment I thought it was over. Then something heavy slid across the floor. A chair, a crate, maybe his hand brushing the tarp's edge. The boards above us creaked. I held my breath. Elara spoke again, voice low but full of iron. "The storm's got long ears, Sheriff. You step 1 inch closer, and it'll remember your name." Danner laughed once, but it was a laugh that didn't reach the eyes. Then the sound of retreat. Spurs clinking, boots splashing. A door slammed. hooves rode off into the dark. We stayed there for a long time, waiting until the silence turned soft again. Elara lifted the tarp, light flooding back in, faint and trembling. Her hair clung to her face, her eyes wild and bright. "You all right?" she whispered. I nodded, but my throat burned. I climbed out, pulled her with me, and before I could think better of it, I caught her in my arms. For a heartbeat, she didn't move. Then she breathed out, long, shaky, and melted against me. The firelight caught her tears, small and bright as stars on her cheeks. "You shouldn't have risked that," I murmured. "I did what I had to," she said, voice muffled against my chest. "The desert teaches you, some lies are holy." I pulled back just enough to see her face. "Then bless me for believing it." She smiled, real this time. And when our foreheads touched, the world outside didn't matter. The storm, the law, the ghosts, all of it faded under the sound of her breath. The fire cracked once more, sending sparks into the dark. She looked up, her eyes softer than I'd ever seen. "Stay till morning," she whispered. "Let the world find us later." And for the first time in years, I did. I let peace find me, in her arms, in the hush between storms. If this fire has lit something inside you, let it keep burning. The desert night isn't done, and neither are they. Dawn came quiet, gold spilling over the rim of the canyon like forgiveness, too shy to speak its name. The storm had passed, leaving the desert rinsed and shining. You could smell the sage again. You could hear the silence breathing. Elara stirred first. She sat by the hearth, her hair undone, her shoulders bare beneath a wool shawl. The fire had burned low, only embers now, soft and red, like the pulse beneath her skin. I watched her for a long moment before she spoke. "You didn't sleep," she said. Her voice carried the rasp of smoke and truth. "I slept enough to remember I was alive," I said. That made her smile, small and tired. She poured coffee, handed me a cup. The steam curled between us, a fragile bridge that neither of us wanted to break. "They'll come back," she said. "Men like Danner don't give up, but he won't ride before noon. He fears the desert sun. So we ride before it finds us," I said. Elara nodded slowly, but her eyes drifted to the light climbing down the canyon wall. "You could," she murmured, "but you won't." "Why not?" "Because the kind of man who says thank you with his eyes isn't built to leave someone behind." Her words sat heavy between us. She didn't look away, didn't blink, just watched the truth land where it was meant to. The fire cracked. A spark leapt, flaring once, then fading into smoke. "Elara," I said, "what you did last night, you put your life on the line for me." "I didn't do it for you." Her tone was soft but firm. "I did it because the desert's taken enough good men. I didn't want to feed it another." "You could have lied better," I said. She laughed, low, throaty, real. "That's the first time anyone's told me I'm bad at lying. You're too honest for your own safety." Her gaze turned inward then. Honesty hurt her more than she'd admit. She rubbed her thumb across the rim of her cup. "I used to think truth could heal everything," she said. "Now I know. Some truths just need a quiet place to rest." We let the silence stretch, the kind that feels alive, full of everything you're not saying, but both can hear. Then she looked up again. "Tell me something, Colt. If you weren't running, who would you be?" The question caught me. I thought of nights on the trail. Empty sky, endless dust, my brother's voice echoing through memories that still bled when touched. "I'd be someone who builds instead of buries," I said finally. "Someone who fixes fences and learns what peace sounds like." She studied me for a moment, then said, "Peace sounds like this." I frowned. "Like what?" She gestured to the room, to the fire, to the slow breath of morning, to the sound of our hearts finding the same rhythm. "Quiet," she said. "Not empty, just quiet." That quiet held us like a hand, warm, patient, knowing. Her eyes softened. The world outside faded. There was only the glow of the fire and her face, caught between shadow and sunrise. "Elara," I started, but she shook her head. "Don't talk yet," she whispered. And then she leaned forward. Her lips met mine like a confession that had waited too long. Soft at first, hesitant, almost afraid to believe in its own truth. Then deeper, warmer. The kind of kiss that erases the distance between pain and peace. I felt her breath tremble, felt her fingers clutch the edge of my shirt like she needed to remember what flesh felt like after years of guarding her soul. When she finally pulled back, her voice was barely there. "You shouldn't have let me do that." "I didn't," I said. "You did it all on your own." That earned a real smile, quiet, radiant, dangerous in its honesty. "I haven't kissed anyone since before the desert forgot how to rain," she murmured. "Then maybe it remembered for you." She laughed again, but there was a tear on her cheek she didn't bother to hide. Outside, the first sunbeam found her face through the cracks in the roof. It lit her like a promise. The moment hung there, fragile, golden, until a hawk cried high above the ridge. Her smile faded. Her hand drifted from my chest. Reality came back like a shadow crossing light. "They'll come again," she said quietly. "And this time they won't knock." "Then I'll be ready," I said. Elara stood, pulled her shawl tighter. "No," she said. "We'll be ready." Her words felt like the beginning of something neither of us could name yet. Something bigger than fear. Something that asked for faith, not logic. I stood too, my hand brushing hers as we moved toward the door. The desert outside glowed, innocent for now. Tracks had already been washed clean by the rain. A new day, pretending to be merciful. Elara glanced at the horizon. Her voice was low, certain. "The desert gave you to me, Colt Avery, but it never gives without asking something back." I looked at her, the firelight catching in her eyes one last time. "Then let's make sure it asks gently." She smiled, the kind that carries both warning and hope. Gently isn't in its nature. And as we saddled the horses, the morning wind shifted, carrying the faint echo of riders once more. The calm before the next storm was breaking. If this story has warmed the quiet in you, don't leave the saddle yet. The desert is only catching its breath, and what waits beyond the ridge will test every promise made by firelight. The sun was sharp by the time we reached the edge of the canyon. Rocks glowed red and gold, still wet from the storm. Below us, the desert stretched wide, endless, a sea of heat waiting to swallow every sound. Elara rode ahead, her shawl tied tight against the wind, her hair a dark banner behind her. Neither of us spoke for miles. Words would have felt fragile out there. Every hoofbeat was a promise. Keep moving, keep breathing, keep believing in the next horizon. When we stopped near a dry creek bed, she turned in the saddle. Her face was calm, but her eyes were watching the distance like they were reading it. "They'll take the ridge trail," she said. "They'll think we went north. The desert loves tricking proud men." "Pride doesn't ride long under this sun," I said. She smiled faintly. "Neither does mercy." I swung down from the horse, checked the wound at my side. It had reopened during the ride, the linen dark with blood. Elara noticed, slid from her saddle, and came to me without a word. Her hands were steady, but I felt the tremor in her breath. "You need to stop," she said. "Another mile, and you'll fall from that horse." "I've fallen before," I said. "Got back up every time." Her eyes hardened. "I'm not burying another man who thinks he can outrun pain." Her voice cracked at the edges. Not anger, fear. The kind of fear that comes from caring again after promising yourself you wouldn't. I sat down on the sand, leaning against a rock warmed by the sun. She knelt beside me, tearing another strip from her dress, pressing it against the wound. The touch hurt, but not because of the blood, because of how gentle she was trying to be. "Hold still," she said softly. I did. The wind carried the faint scent of rain and wild sage. Her fingers brushed my skin, slow, deliberate, tracing the edges of the bandage like she was memorizing something she might lose. When she was done, she didn't move away. Her hand stayed against my chest, right over my heart. "You're too warm," she whispered. "Desert fever," I said. "No," she replied, her voice quieter now. "Not that kind." The silence between us grew thick again. Not heavy, not awkward, just alive. Her thumb moved once, a slow circle over my skin. It felt like both a question and an answer. "Elara," I said, my voice rough, "why did you really save me?" She looked at me then, straight through. "For the same reason you didn't leave last night," she said. "Because somewhere under all the scars, we both still believe there's something worth saving." I couldn't answer, didn't need to. Her truth filled the air like the aftertaste of whiskey. Warm, bitter, honest. The sun climbed higher. We sat there, two broken souls pretending the world had paused just for us. Her hand slipped from my chest to my shoulder, her head resting there like it had always belonged. "I used to think I needed someone to ride in and rescue me," she murmured. "Now I just want someone who stays long enough to share the quiet." Her words hit harder than any bullet, because I wanted that too. I wanted it more than I wanted freedom. I turned my head just enough to catch her gaze. Her lips parted. A breath, a heartbeat, a surrender. And then I kissed her. Not fierce, not desperate. Just true. The desert fell away. There was only warmth, her taste, her breath trembling against mine. Every pain, every scar, every ghost, they all went silent under that touch. When she finally pulled back, her eyes were wet. "Don't make me regret believing in this," she whispered. "I won't," I said. "Not even if it kills me." A shadow crossed her face at that, and she glanced toward the horizon. The glint of sunlight off metal flashed far away, rifles catching the day. She didn't have to speak. I saw the truth in her eyes. They found us. I rose, pain forgotten, fire alive in my veins again. How far? 1/2 mile, she said. Maybe less. 3 riders. Danner and his men. We moved fast, throwing our packs onto the horses. Elara's hands were quick, sure. She'd done this before, run before, survived before. As we mounted up, she looked at me one last time. "You trust me?" she asked. "With what's left of me," I said. Her eyes softened. "Then follow my lead." She turned her horse toward the gorge, a narrow cut of stone and shadow that looked too small for a man to pass through, but somehow she did. I followed close behind. The canyon swallowed us, walls rising like the ribs of an old god. Our echoes followed, heartbeats, hoofbeats, breaths. Behind us, the sound of pursuit grew louder, closer. "Elara!" I called. "Almost there!" she shouted back. The path twisted once more, then opened suddenly. A hidden hollow where the sun couldn't reach. A cave, small but deep, lined with smooth stone and silence. We slid from the saddles, pulling the horses in behind. Outside, the riders slowed. Their voices carried faint through the canyon. Elara pressed a finger to her lips. Her eyes met mine. Her breath brushed my cheek. And for that heartbeat, even with danger at the door, everything felt right. She leaned close enough for a whisper. "If we live through this, I want to know what peace sounds like beside you." I wanted to promise her we would, but the sound of spurs scraping rock cut through the air, and the fire in her eyes turned to steel. If this story has stirred something deep in you, stay near the fire. The next breath might decide everything. The desert hasn't spoken its last word yet. The echo of spurs grew sharper in the canyon mouth. Voices bounced off the rock. Close. Too close. Elara's hand found mine in the dark. No words, no plan, just the pulse between us saying, "Don't move." We could see them now through the split in the stone. 3 riders, dust-streaked and mean with purpose. Sheriff Danner in front, his badge dulled by sand, but still gleaming like arrogance. The 2 behind him scanned the rocks with rifles ready, eyes narrow from too many kills. Elara leaned near my ear, her breath soft against my neck. "Stay low," she whispered. "He always circles before striking. He likes his prey to feel cornered." I watched Danner's horse stop at the gorge's edge. He dismounted slow, deliberate, like he was stepping into an old memory. He looked toward the hollow, toward us. "Elara Wren!" His voice thundered down the stone walls. "You think the desert hides your sins forever? It doesn't. It remembers every step you take." Elara's fingers tightened on mine. Her jaw clenched. Her whisper came low, like she was speaking to herself as much as me. "He used to sound kind when he said my name." "Who was he to you?" I asked. She turned, eyes full of ghosts. "The man who promised justice to my husband before he shot him in the back." Outside, Danner called again. "Come out, Elara. Bring the outlaw. You're good at saving broken men, but I've never known you to keep one alive for long." I saw her flinch, just once. Then her eyes hardened. "I'll give him silence instead," she whispered. She raised her Colt, the same one she'd kept polished through dust and years of grief. "Elara," I said quietly, "you don't have to face him alone." She looked at me, firelight flickering over her face. "Yes," she said softly, "I do. But I don't have to end it alone." We moved together, crawling toward the edge of the rock split. The cave's mouth opened to a ledge, half-shadowed from the sun. From there, we could see everything. The sheriff's men spreading out, rifles ready. A hawk screamed high above, circling, waiting for the story to end in dust. Dana's voice cut through again. "You've got until I count 3. After that, the canyon takes both of you." He raised his rifle. "1." Elara's hand steadied. She nodded once, signaling me. 2. I took aim. The Colt heavy, balanced, real. The sound of my breath filled the world. 3. The desert cracked open. 2 gunshots, same heartbeat, dust leapt from stone. Echoes thundered through the gorge like a storm returned. Dana's hat spun off into the sand. He staggered, clutching his arm. Elara's bullet had grazed him clean through. The 2 deputies fired back, blind into the rocks. Stone shattered. Sparks flew. My shot found one of them. Not death, just pain enough to make him drop his rifle and crawl for the horses. The air stank of powder and old vengeance. I could taste the iron in it. Dana crouched behind a boulder, his voice bitter now. "You always did shoot better than your husband, Elara. Guess you finally found a man who'll die with you." Her jaw clenched. She whispered, "He dies for no one." Then she stood, straight into the light, dust in her hair, wind at her back. A woman shaped by every wrong she'd survived, and still, somehow, standing. Dana froze. For a moment, the lawman and the killer both looked at her the same way, as if the desert itself had chosen her side. "Elara," he said, lowering the rifle slightly, "you don't have to—" Her shot cut him off, clean, sharp. The echo hung forever. He staggered once, then fell, the sand catching him like it had been waiting. The hawk above screamed again, then wheeled away toward the sun. Silence came back slow, heavy and sacred, the kind that belongs after truth finally speaks. Elara didn't move. She just stood there, breathing. I went to her, took the Colt from her hand, and lowered it. Her fingers were trembling, not from fear, but release. "It's over," I said. Her eyes found mine. Tears slid down, quiet as morning dew. "It's never over," she whispered. "But it's lighter now." I pulled her close. She didn't resist. Her body trembled against mine, then softened, her forehead resting on my shoulder. The desert around us went still, as if it, too, was holding its breath. We stayed like that until the light shifted and the world felt new again. Her voice came small, almost childlike. "What happens now?" I brushed a strand of hair from her cheek. "We ride," I said. "Not to run, to begin." She nodded, her hand slipping into mine. The wind rose again, carrying the scent of rain and gunpowder, life and ending. When she finally looked back at the hollow, the firelight caught her eyes and made them glow like they carried the sunrise itself. "Maybe," she said softly, "this is what mercy looks like when it remembers how to breathe." And as we walked toward the waiting horses, side by side, the desert opened before us. Endless, golden, and for the first time, forgiving. If this chapter has left a flicker of warmth in you, stay close to the fire. The night isn't done with its miracles yet, and love, like the desert, always finds another dawn. The sun bled low across the desert when we rode again. Orange light kissed the stones, turning the world gold and sorrowful. Behind us, the canyon kept its silence, a grave for vengeance, a cradle for mercy. Elara didn't speak for a long while. She rode with her shoulders straight, eyes fixed on the horizon. The wind tangled her hair, caught the edge of her shawl, and carried away the last ashes of what we'd done. When the first stars rose, she finally said, "He used to ride beside me through this same valley. We never talked much, just listened to the wind. Tonight, it sounds different." "Because you're free," I said. She gave a small, broken laugh. "Freedom feels heavy at first, like guilt in a softer coat." We made camp near a cluster of boulders where the night air smelled of creosote and rain. The horses settled, snorting softly. Elara gathered dry brush while I built the fire. When it caught, the flames rose bright against the dark, our only light in miles of empty land. She sat beside me, knees drawn close, eyes lost in the fire. "The first time I held a gun," she said, "I thought it made me strong. Then I learned strength comes after you put it down." "You were strong long before today," I said. She looked at me then, a slow, disbelieving smile finding her. "Maybe, but today I chose it." The fire cracked, sending sparks into the sky. I watched one drift, glowing until it vanished into the stars. Elara reached out, her fingers brushing mine. Her touch was lighter than the breeze, yet it set something deep in me burning again, not wild, but steady. "You could ride on," she said quietly. "Head east, find another town, another name. Leave all this behind." "And leave you?" I asked. Her gaze held mine, strong, unblinking. "I don't need saving, Colt." "I know," I said, "but maybe I do." She looked away, her jaw tightening as if she wanted to argue. Then she exhaled, slow and long, letting the truth sink between us. "I don't know how to build anything," she murmured. "I only know how to survive." "Then we'll start there," I said. One quiet morning at a time. Her eyes shimmered, catching firelight like gold dust. For a heartbeat, she looked young again, unburdened, almost shy. The night deepened. Coyotes called somewhere far off, lonely songs carried on the wind. Elara leaned against me, her head resting on my shoulder. The warmth of her pressed close felt like something the desert itself could never take back. "I thought the fire would haunt me forever," she said softly. "Now it just feels like home." I turned slightly, enough to meet her eyes in the flicker of flame. The reflection of it lived there, wild and tender all at once. She didn't look away when I kissed her. It wasn't the hurried heat of fear anymore. It was slow, certain, like a man and a woman who had finally earned the right to breathe. Her hand slid to my chest. Her breath trembled. "Every time I close my eyes," she whispered, "I see the things I've lost." "Then keep them open," I said, "and see what's still here." Her tears came quiet, one at a time, falling against my skin. The sound of them, soft, unguarded, broke something in me that I didn't know needed breaking. The firelight wrapped around us. No words left, just the slow rhythm of heartbeats and the sigh of desert wind through the sage. Every scar, every shadow, every choice that had brought us here seemed to fade beneath the same truth. We were still alive, and that was enough. When the fire sank low, she whispered, "I don't want to lose this, Colt." "You won't," I said. "Not while the fire remembers." She smiled through the tears, then leaned closer, her lips finding mine again. Deeper this time, no ghosts between us. The desert watched, the stars burned, and for the first time, love didn't feel like danger. It felt like healing. Outside the circle of firelight, the horizon waited, quiet and patient, as if it knew tomorrow would test what we'd built tonight. If this story has quieted something restless in your chest, keep the flame close. Its warmth still has miles to travel. The dawn will bring its own reckoning, and the promise born in this fire will be tested when the sun rises over the desert once more. Dawn came slow, crawling across the sand like it feared what it might find. The fire had burned down to ash, soft grey and warm under the first light. Elara slept beside me, her hair tangled against my arm, her breath deep, even, unafraid. For the first time in years, I watched someone sleep without wanting to leave before they woke. When she stirred, she smiled, small, shy, real. "Morning," she murmured. "Morning," I said. We packed the camp in silence, the kind that means peace, not distance. The desert stretched open ahead, gold and quiet, the kind of morning that almost made you believe the world forgot how to be cruel. But I knew better. Peace never lasted long under a sky that wide. We rode toward the basin where the hills met the plain. Elara pointed to a ridge ahead. "There's a town that way, Dry Creek, a few hours out. We can get supplies. Maybe even start over." "Start over," I repeated, tasting the words like they were new. "Does that happen out here?" She looked at me, half smiling. "Only for those who stop running." The wind shifted then. It carried something faint. Not sand, not rain. Smoke. We slowed. Elara's eyes narrowed toward the horizon. A column of black rose from the canyon we'd left behind. She whispered, "The hideout." It wasn't a question. We both knew. "They burned it," I said. She nodded once. Her face didn't break, but her hand tightened on the reins. "That place held every ghost I had left," she said softly. Maybe it was time to let them go. We rode on, the smoke fading behind us until it became part of the sky. But in her silence, I heard what she didn't say, that losing even the ghosts left her bare, unanchored. I reached across and touched her hand on the reins. She didn't look at me, but she didn't pull away either. By midday, the sun burned fierce again. We stopped near an old windmill, half swallowed by sand. The air shimmered, heavy with heat. Elara climbed down, wiping sweat from her neck, and looked at me with that steady gaze that always felt like a challenge and a prayer at once. "What happens when the running stops, Colt?" she asked. "What do we do when there's no more storm to survive?" "Maybe," I said, "we build something before the next one comes." Her lips parted, not for an answer, but because the idea itself hurt a little. She was a woman built for endurance, not safety. And safety, I realized, can frighten the brave. She came closer, shadows crossing her face as the blades of the windmill turned slow above us. "You think a man like you can build peace?" "I think a man like me can learn," I said. "If someone's patient enough to teach." She smiled then, the kind that started in her eyes. "Careful. I'm not gentle when I teach." I stepped closer, close enough to feel her breath mix with mine. "Neither am I when I learn." The space between us vanished again. The kiss wasn't fire this time. It was the calm after it. A slow surrender, steady and sure, like two people finally remembering the rhythm they were born for. When we pulled apart, she rested her forehead against mine. "Promise me one thing," she whispered. "When the past tries to ride after us again, you won't face it alone." "I won't," I said. "Not unless you let go." Her hand slid down my arm, fingers finding mine, locking tight. "I'm not letting go," she said. We stood there as the wind shifted again, the smell of sage, the hum of desert air, the whisper of something new beginning. And then, far off, we saw it. The faint outline of Dry Creek, half a ghost town, half a chance. Wooden roofs catching sunlight, smoke from cook fires rising like hope, learning to stand. Elara's voice was soft. "Maybe this time the fire will be for warmth, not warning." I looked at her, the woman who'd faced her ghosts and still found enough light to lead me out of mine. "Maybe this time," I said, "the fire stays lit because we tend it together." She smiled through the shimmer of heat, her eyes bright, unguarded. "Then let's find out." We rode on, side by side, into that faint mirage of town and promise. Behind us, the desert whispered, not of danger, not of loss, but of quiet things worth keeping. If this story has found a still place in your heart, don't look away. One dawn remains, and the desert's last secret waits beneath the morning light. By the time the sun sank over Dry Creek, the world glowed the color of old whiskey. The wind had gone soft again, the kind that smells of cedar smoke and quiet promises. We reached the edge of town just as lanterns began to bloom along the wooden porches. It wasn't much of a place. A handful of buildings, a half-broken water tower, a saloon leaning on faith. But after miles of sand and silence, it felt like mercy. Elara reined in her horse and looked around with cautious eyes. "Still standing," she said. "Didn't think I'd ever see another town without running from it." "Maybe this one's waiting for us," I said. She smiled faintly. "Towns don't wait. They just survive until someone loves them enough to rebuild." We rode to the livery first, trading the last of our coins for oats and a place for the horses. Then we walked through the main street, slow, side by side, close enough that our hands brushed with every step. People looked up as we passed, miners, drifters, women sweeping porches. They saw a man and a woman dusted by the road, tired but not beaten. In the West, that was enough to earn quiet respect. The saloon door creaked as we entered. The smell of tobacco, wood polish, and piano dust filled the air. A few men glanced up, curious, but no one spoke. Elara's eyes caught the fire in the corner stove, and for a moment she just stood there, bathed in its glow. She whispered, almost to herself, "Every time I see fire, I remember who I was, and who I had to become to keep standing near it." "You don't have to stand near it anymore," I said. "You can sit beside it now." That made her laugh softly, the kind of laugh that sounded like rain after years of drought. We took a corner table. I poured her a drink. For the first time, we didn't talk about survival or loss or running. We just talked about nothing and everything. The way she missed the sound of thunder without fear. The way I'd forgotten how to trust silence. When the piano started playing, she reached across the table and rested her hand over mine. "I never thanked you," she said. "For what?" "For not leaving." I looked at her fingers, strong, scarred, beautiful in their honesty. "I didn't stay for gratitude," I said. "I stayed because every road before you led nowhere." Her eyes softened. "You think the desert ever forgives what we've done?" I took a slow breath, watching the fire flicker behind her. "I think it already did. That storm washed more than blood away." She nodded, tears shining but not falling. "Then maybe forgiveness is just another word for still being alive." The night stretched on, quiet and kind. When we finally stepped outside, the stars were thick above us. 1,000 small fires across the dark. The wind carried the faint smell of rain again. Elara slipped her hand into mine. No fear, no hesitation. Just a woman who had walked through every kind of loss and still found something worth reaching for. We stood there for a long while watching the sky. Then she said softly, "Tomorrow we find a place on the edge of town, maybe fix that old house near the creek, maybe start a garden. I could live with that kind of work." "You'll need help," I said. She smiled, that slow, knowing smile that had already undone 100 ghosts. I was counting on it. The firelight from the saloon spilled across her face as she turned toward me. It caught the gold in her eyes, the promise there. I kissed her, slow, certain, no more fear in the touch, just warmth, and the sound of the world remembering how to rest. When we broke apart, she whispered, "Looks like the fire finally stopped taking. Now it gives back." And I knew then that the desert, the storms, the dust, the endless miles, had all been leading here. Not to escape, but to peace, hard-earned, simple, and real. She leaned her head against my shoulder. The night breathed with us. Somewhere far off, a coyote called, not in mourning, but in song. "If this story has touched a quiet corner of your heart," I whispered, echoing the tone she'd once used by that first fire, "stay close. Let your light stay with us, so this western fire keeps burning for you." And as the wind carried the scent of dawn across Dry Creek, we stood together under the stars. Two souls no longer running, finally home in the desert's forgiving light.